Hi everyone, I'm Nimesh Shah, CEO of Blick Rothenberg, and as part of our success stories, I'm delighted to be here at the London offices of Miniclip and joined by President and Founder Rob Small. Rob, thank you very much for joining us today.
Hi Nimesh, great to see you.
So Rob, I've known you for a number of years now, and tell me about the start of your journey at Miniclip.
So the journey of Miniclip really started in the 1980s when I was at school. I am dyslexic, and I think the way that my brain was kind of programmed was not conducive with the ways that they teach at schools. And so it wasn't a very happy time for me at school. And at the age of 16, I was called into the headmaster's office and asked to leave. At that point in my life, I kind of had two decisions. One was to kind of accept that and kind of resigned myself to not really making a success of my life. The other was to use it as rocket fuel and try to prove that guy wrong. And that's the path that I chose. And so I left school, went to college and then on to university, got a 2-1 degree, and then went into the world of work. My first experience was in an oil company, working in a call center, like a lot of grads. And it wasn't a great experience, I have to say. And so after a few months, I decided to quit. And I thought, I'm young, in my early 20s, why not try and start my own company? And so, I felt like the chances of success were probably reasonably low, but I would learn a lot from that experience. And so I decided that I would try and set up my own company. At that point in time, in the late 1990s, the dot-com bubble was growing, and I was watching this as a kind of naive graduate from the sidelines and saw these companies that were IPOing for billions and billions of dollars. And I looked at the founders and the CEOs of these companies and thought, wow, I want to be that. And so that's what I did. I decided to create my own dot-com company, it was called in those days. And that was the start of Miniclip's journey.
Wow, and I can relate to getting told off at school as well, but maybe slightly different reasons, Rob. But where did you get the idea for Miniclip then?
So I was a grad with £15,000 of student debts, like most graduates. And so when it came to thinking up an idea for the company, I knew that it needed to be in a category where I wasn't going to need to raise a lot of money to do marketing, and that execution of a really good idea would be able to put the company on the map. And so we got online, we started researching the internet in those early days.
You said we, is that you and?
Me and my business partner, yeah, who I founded the company with. And I think, there were a few things that we observed in those early days of the internet. One of the most important, and you're probably old enough to remember this, is the 56K dial-up modem, which was a huge limitation for an internet company. And so the idea that we came up with needed to pay attention to that, which was, a very low bandwidth connection. It needed to pay attention to the fact that we didn't have millions of dollars to invest in marketing. And so we focused on the entertainment category, because the entertainment category is hit driven. And you see, across music, movies, animations, games, hits, happening all the time. And so we thought if we could come up with a really solid idea and execute on it, it could put our company on the map. We just needed to come up with an amazing idea, and that was the toughest part, I guess. So entertainment category was the focus. We wanted our products to feel very accessible and have a very kind of global appeal. And in order to ensure that they were very accessible, we took quite a risky decision, which was to make them free. Now in 2000, the games industry was dominated by console, by PC. People would go and buy a game for $20. So it was quite radical to say we're going to give the product away for free. But of course now that's common practice. Yeah. And so our focus was on building audience quickly. And so we focused on the entertainment category. We decided the brand name we chose would represent something that was highly accessible, something that was simple and easy to get into. And so Miniclip as our brand represents that, something that's very compact, and clip was a generic term that could work across, we didn't know it was games at this point, but could work across all different entertainment categories. So the first idea that we actually had was a wrestling game with Britney Spears, because as a 21-year-old, I was a big fan of Britney Spears. And so I thought, who wouldn't want to play a wrestling game with Britney Spears? So I made a wrestling game. And it was quite fun, but my business partner, who was an American, looked at the game and said, now let's just imagine, Rob, if this is really successful, what's going to happen? Brittany's going to find out about it, then her manager's going to email the lawyer and we're going to get sued. So I thought, good point. So we killed off the Brittany idea and we decided that we would flick to another character. And at this point in time, George Bush was becoming, he was still a lowly politician. He wasn't, we knew that he was the son of the former president, but he wasn't really, that well known. And so we thought actually somebody in the kind of political category could be interesting because they're less concerned about their image rights. And so we decided to make a game called Dancing Bush, which was filmed in the apartment that we started the company in. We hung some bed sheets in front of the work surfaces. And my business partner was the body double for George Bush, and I videoed him and made it into an animation. It took me a week, borrowed some money from the famous DJ Bob Sinclair, and released Dancing Bush to 30 people that we had, my friends from university, my business partner's friends. And nothing happened. Nobody even responded to the email.
And what did your friends think of the game?
Well, nobody really acknowledged it. I mean, in that era, you sent products around via attachments on email. So nobody even responded to the email. We got no traffic on the website. And then about 2 weeks later, I got a phone call from one of the IT guys that we were leasing some servers because we had no money. And he said to me, Rob, there's something going on. We think your servers are under attack because there's a lot of volume coming into them. We think it's a DOS attack, where they flood your IP addresses. He looked into it for a few hours, called me back and said, no, there's thousands of people trying to access your website, trying to access this Dancing Bush thing. So, Monday morning got into work, downloaded a text file because there were no analytics in those days, and sure enough, 5,000 people had tried to play the game that day. That was the start of the craziest week of my life. Because they say that timing is everything in business, and our timing was absolutely impeccable. Because as that week progressed, by the Wednesday of that week, George Bush announced that he was going to run for the presidency. So our animation that had just started to grow in popularity suddenly exploded. And by Thursday, I'd had an email from a journalist at Fox News who said to me, we'd like to interview you about this animation that you've made. And I was a graduate, making it up as I went along, and I was petrified at the thought of being interviewed. But I had a call with this journalist, and she asked me, a few questions about the idea, and then she asked me the question she really wanted an answer to, which was, has George Bush funded this animation? Which is, of course, ridiculous, because we just...
And did you preempt that question?
No. I mean, I was completely caught off guard, and I wanted to answer it honestly, which was, that's a ridiculous suggestion. We're just two guys messing around in an apartment. But my business partner was smart enough to realise that there was an opportunity here. So I said no comment. And of course, no comment to a journalist means you're absolutely in cahoots with George Bush. And that animation went on to be played over 1 billion times. And it put Miniclip on the map. And that's why we're here today, 20 years later.
So we've got George Bush to thank for it, really.
Absolutely.
For a lot of things.
Yes, indeed.
And 20 years later, what do you think has been really the foundations of success for Miniclip, starting from the George Bush game to now?
Yeah, I mean, I think a few things, to be honest, Nimesh. I think, we've stayed true to that original focus of making things very accessible. We're all living busier lives. There's so many things that are competing for our attention. And so I think at Miniclip, as the name represents, we've tried to make sure that our products are easily accessible. They have huge international appeal. So we have over 50 million daily active players of our game. So, almost the population of the UK every day playing one of Miniclip's products. So I think that accessibility piece has been very important. I think, we had massive imposter syndrome, like a lot of people do. And I think we felt early on in our business that we wanted to play our cards very close to our chest. So we actually ran the business quite secretively, and my business partner forced me to read The Art of War, and I actually followed that quite religiously, in that I knew that the games industry was hugely popular and we had a lot of well-funded competitors, and that if you go into battle, you don't tell your enemy how big the tanks are and what tactics you're going to use. And we did that. We played our cards very close to our chest, and we let people believe that Miniclip was as big as they wanted to believe it was. And because we were a website, the front window of our company was a web page. And that worked really well because people take you a lot more seriously when they think you're a much bigger company. Of course, today, now we're 1,000 people, we've got 12 offices, we are a big company. But I think that was important in the early phases of our business, you know, being quite cautious about how we manage PR and things like that. Of course, the team, I mean, you know, I think one of the huge strengths that I have being dyslexic, you know, they talk about it as being a superpower. One thing you realize when you're dyslexic is that you need other people to be successful. And I certainly felt that in order to bring my vision of the company to life, I needed to bring people on board who could help me do that. And you know, work through those individuals. And so building a really close team around me that I think make me, you know, hopefully a better boss. And a much wider team now across the company who are hugely talented and mean that we stay relevant with the products that we're building and pivot between web and mobile, which was an important part of Miniclip's evolution. So I think definitely, you know, having huge talent across the organisation. The culture is also extremely important for us. They say that 80% of a company's culture comes from its founder. Yeah. I'm not sure if that's a good thing in my case, but we do work quite hard to make sure that the culture of the organisation kind of permeates out. You can't just let it look after itself. You really do have to work hard to do that. And I think that's one of the reasons that we've been successful. We have advocates across the company who really, you know, take that culture and kind of push it around the organisation to make sure that people feel part of the company and part of this business that we've built.
So what strikes me from just what you've said over the last few minutes, Rob, is the purpose of Miniclip that you and your business partner founded all those years ago was about accessibility. You've mentioned that so many times, and then you've translated that into the culture of the business and also the team around you, and also the cheerleaders, the advocates you've got in the business as well. And maybe I've answered the question here for you, but what advice would you then give to business owners, entrepreneurs who are starting out on the journey, or maybe they're partway through the journey as well?
Yeah, well, I would say if you want to come into the games industry, please don't, because there's enough competition for us at the moment and it's hugely competitive. I think the cultural piece is very, very important. You need to work really hard to make sure that the culture continues to thrive as the organisation grows. I think, as you say, accessibility has been key for us, and I think the fact that we've always had a very international flavour to the organisation, to the diversity of employees that we have across the organisation. You know, ultimately as a business we're trying to unleash the gamer in everyone. That's our mission. And so in order to achieve that, and in order to build products that have global appeal, you need to make sure that you mirror that in your organisational structure and the types of people that you're hiring. So we do have a very diverse employee base across 8 different countries, and I think that means that we're more successful in building games that are culturally relevant to the markets that we focus on. And I think if that's your goal as a new entrepreneur, you need to make sure that you build that diversity in your team as well.
And is that something that you did? You mentioned diversity, so that's something you did consciously from an early part of the Miniclip journey?
Absolutely. I mean, I think, you know, our focus strategically, and the point where this really dawned on me was about 6 years ago when we were focused on really trying to capture market share in India. And I stood on stage in front of 500 employees in Marrakesh. We had an offsite there, and I said to the team, you know, we really need to focus on India. It's a new market. It's, you know, a young base of a young population, love games. We need to be the first mover in this market. But it dawned on me that in order to build games that are going to succeed in India, we needed to make sure that we had people who understood the culture of the market there. And so we went and hired lots of people across India to help us build games like Karam, which is a very popular tabletop game that is played in India. Not many Brits would have heard of it, but we had a team who knew that that was a household game in India, and so we released a Karam game. It's now one of the most popular games in the Indian market. We've just released a cricket game. Are you a cricket fan?
I've actually been to the World Cup in India to watch India win the World Cup, even though I'm an England fan. My father did buy me a Karam table when I was younger.
Oh, right,
so
wow.
I'm probably one of the few people who do know what that is.
So you do, yeah. And so, you know, for Karam, for cricket, you know, for whatever sport or game type that we're building, we do need to make sure that we've got that cultural expertise internally. And that's certainly been important for us, and the reason that we've been in business for 2 decades now.
And I have to ask, because it's a lot of what our people ask as well internally, is where did you get the idea for 8-ball pool?
That's a good question, yeah. So 8-ball pool was actually an acquisition. So we had a successful website for the first 10 years of Miniclip's business. One of the games on our platform was a simple pool game, single-player pool game. And we noticed that this game was becoming more and more popular on the website. So we approached the developers and we bought the game from them and reinvented it on mobile. We took the idea of the kind of poker betting mechanics, so you've really got something to play for, overlaid it with a game of pool, made a really good physics engine. So if you've played our game, you'll know that it feels quite like the real sport of pool. And you know, it's turned it into one of the world's top grossing games, and it's one of the foundation stones of Miniclip's business.
Yeah. Everyone I know plays 8-ball pool. So Rob, we've been working together for several years now, and you'll have to indulge me slightly here, but what was it that attracted you to Blick Rothenberg, to working with me, and what is it that you look for in a professional advisor?
Well, trust is a very important thing for me. You know, whether it's on the business side or on the personal side, I've got to believe that the person that I'm working with I can trust, and certainly in working with you, that's something that I definitely know I can trust you on. I think also it's something that I call the bait and switch. Often when I'm introduced to a new advisory firm, I get to meet the CEO or one of the senior partners, and then I'm quickly palmed off onto a junior associate. But I think certainly with Blick Rothenberg, you know, I met you earlier on and we're still working together all these years later, and that's how you build trust with your client base, and I really appreciate that from my side. I think also you offer very pragmatic advice. You're speedy with the responses that you know I have for you, and I very much enjoy working with you, so it's been a great relationship so far.
Well, thanks very much, Rob, for all those kind words. You have indulged me. Just wanted to say again a big thank you for being part of success stories today, and I've certainly picked up a lot about the journey of Miniclip, and I'm sure it's been really interesting for everyone listening to this short video.
Thanks so much, Nimesh.
Thank you.
Cheers.